I'm from right here in Mississippi. Grew up in Duck Hill, Mississippi. 30 miles south of here? East, where we at? Ackerman. Anyway, that song, Glass on the Floor, as he was singing that, I vividly remembered a glass penny jar being chunked across the floor as a child. And I brought this Bible up with me because I just wanted to show a representation. The lady who held this Bible her whole life, I know she held the Lord's ear 100% of the time. And I believe that she knew that one day I would be standing here because not too long ago, I found this piece of paper in this Bible. And 6-year-old little me in my church I grew up in stood up on stage to read this little thing that says, God is good, God is strong. He is the one that tells us to love others. And she kept this. And not long before I was given the opportunity to come out here and speak to y'all, I was seeking my calling. I didn't know what my calling was. I was like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I supposed to be standing in front of people? Is this why I went through the things that I went through? And I have held that Bible. I cannot tell you how many times, and I have gone through it because every day I find something new in it. And I didn't find that piece of paper until I'm reading a devotional that says seeking your calling. And I find that, and I vividly remember that there was nothing more that I wanted to do but to tell people that God was good. And at that age, I was living with my great grandmother because my parents were addicts. My dad was a terrible alcoholic. And like I said, I remember a penny jar being flown across the floor. And my mom, I have issues with my mom. And that's another thing I want to say. Me standing up here does not make me any better than y'all sitting there. I have been through the same, I want to say it, hell that y'all have been through. Just because I get to stand here and talk to y'all doesn't make me any better. Me and my husband, we still have challenges today. And it's not easy. I deal with things with my mom on a daily basis with forgiveness, and we preach forgiveness all the time. And so even there are things that we can preach on that we can't take in our heart ourselves or that we can teach on. So growing up, I had both of my parents were addicts. They dumped me at my great grandmother's house when I was about 3 years old, and she was 76 years old then with a 3-year-old. So I grew up in a little house probably no bigger than this whole room here, learning how to cook and to clean, and we grew things in the gardens, and we had chickens that I didn't know she was cooking and eating my whole life until I was grown, y'all. The dog got them, she said. But we had chicken on Sunday. So I went through those challenges, and I was taken away from her. In all accounts, I call her, she was my mother. And I was taken to put back with my mother, who was not a stable person at the time. And so I became an adult at 15 years old. I'm only 27 years old now. And I'm old enough to say that I've been in recovery for 6 years. That's crazy. I was an alcoholic before I could even buy alcohol. Because that was just, I grew up in the bars. I spent the weekends with my dad in little honky tonks all over Grenada County, Montgomery County, so it was such a struggle already. I was born into the addiction and the trauma that my parents couldn't even get over. And the theme tonight is testimony. And we've heard several times that like your testimony is so important. And I talk about my husband all the time. When he was 11 years old, he heard a testimony. And at 42, when he was sick and tired of being sick and tired, he remembered that testimony that he heard when he was 11 years old. And it brought him back to being able to reach out for recovery. So no matter your story, no matter the things that you went through, it's going to touch somebody. It's meant for somebody. And I get to speak to women a lot. It's very seldom that I get to speak to men and women together. But when I'm at the jail and I get to speak to those women, they sit there. And I remember doing it myself. It's easy to sit there and look at me and think, what does she know? She hasn't been through what I've been through. How can you say God is so great? You know how I can say God is so great? Before I was even born, I was supposed to die. My mom fell off of the porch, pregnant with me at 9 months pregnant in the middle of January because my dad was chasing her with a lighter. The enemy tried to take me out then. When I was 3 years old, before I went to my grandmother's house, bullets rang out in my home because my parents were fighting over a gun. I should have died then. There was bullet holes in my bedroom wall. Then later in life, I was in situations and I was in places and I was in bars, and one of the biggest things is my dad took me to these places as a kid, and there were grown men there that weren't friendly. There were grown women there that weren't friendly. The cops would come in and shut them down. You would have raids. My dad blew up a meth lab in our backyard one time. If that had been in our house, it would have been in my bedroom because that's where they did their drugs. They had a closet in my bedroom where they did their drugs. So many times I should have died. And when people say, how can you serve a God that's so great that lets these bad things happen? It's not that he lets these bad things happen. Sometimes our parents, our grandparents, other people in our life have made pacts with the enemy and not even known it, have signed contracts with them. And when the enemy has a threshold, anything that's not of him, he wants to take it out. But the Lord covered me all of those years. He covered me. He protected me. I shouldn't have survived my mom falling. I shouldn't have survived bullet holes in my bedroom. I shouldn't have survived meth labs blowing up. I shouldn't have survived wrecks. My daddy rolled vehicles with me and I'm drunk. I got actually in Kill Michael over here. I was 14 years old and I should have been taken into the system that night. But my daddy was too drunk to drive us home and I was doing 25 on 82. And we got pulled over and a cop let us go. And we had to drive all the way back to Minerva, all through Minerva out into Duck Hill, back into Montgomery County on a gravel road at 14 years old in the dark. And things like that just don't happen. I mean, we all grew up growing up, back roads and in fields and stuff. That's one thing, but your unconscious dad and your two little brothers in the back seat. It shouldn't happen. And I survived all of those things. I've had to deal with loss. I started raising my little brothers at about 15 too. I started moving out then. And I had a little brother that had cystic fibrosis, which is a terminal illness, and he was born with it. There's no cure for it. And he fought until he was 23 years old. And I was his mom on all accounts, but you walk into those situations and you can't help but say, God, why? Why? And now I know that walking through all of that made me who I am today. I have knowledge and wisdom and I can relate to people. I can sit down and have a conversation with anybody just about and say, I know what you've been through. I have been through the sexual assaults. I have been through the abuse. I have been through the rape. I have been through the addiction myself. I think that's why I started drinking when I was 15. I mean, grown adults wanted to hang out with me. And that's where I came into alcoholism and other drugs. I recreationally smoked marijuana. I had a few run-ins with pills and other drugs, and I thank the Lord I never got addicted to those. But by 21, I was already a full-blown alcoholic. I was coming home every single day from work and drinking till I went to sleep. And I thought I was a good undercover alcoholic. Just let me say, a drunk knows a drunk. I'm just saying. So, through all of those things, I remember sitting in a church pew one day, listening to this woman talk. And I said, what do you know, woman? What do you know? How can you say he is so good when I'm sitting here dying? I'm watching my brother die from something that can't be cured. I'm watching my parents die from an addiction that they just don't want to give up. I'm watching families fall apart. I'm watching my own trauma play out in the world. How can you say he's so good? And now to be a healthy human being and to be where I am and can look back and see all the times that he covered me, and he was a good God, and he just kept putting me into situations that I could get out of it when I shouldn't have. That's how I know he's a good God. And it is so easy to blame other people for some of our own mess ups. I can sit here and blame my mama and daddy all day long for the choices I made. But my great grandmother that held this Bible she knew that one day I would be made for greatness. And I knew who Jesus was. I knew who God was. I went to church. She had me in church every Sunday, every Wednesday night. But I also knew who those people in that church were on Saturday. And they weren't sitting here. They were at the same bars my daddy was at. So I grew up believing, oh, I serve a good God. I know who Jesus is. I'll be all right. I'll ask forgiveness tomorrow, but pass me another one. And it was okay. It was okay. I grew up believing that it was okay to continue to live in sin because we serve a forgiving God. No, we serve a Jesus that flipped tables like these with folks just like us sitting at them. And nothing can change my mind on that now because I know the things that I know, and I have spent that time building such a great relationship with God. What was it last night that I said? It was release my defenses, Lord, and give me your defenses. Because we had a guy last night at the men's center that was talking about releasing his trauma and forgiving himself, but he felt like he had something that he couldn't remember stuck inside of him that he couldn't get out, that maybe was hindering his relationship with the Lord or hindering his forgiveness. And I was sitting there and it just came to me. It was like, he needs to drop his defenses. He's not using the Lord's defenses. He's using his defenses. And it's eye-opening sometimes. Y'all can fix our problems. So always speak, always talk. If you have the opportunity to say, hey man, you ain't got to live like this, do it. Love on somebody every day and don't be afraid of it. People, I think the biggest thing that hangs people up in this type of world, in this type of recovery, is they're scared of judgment. And here, we're judgment free. I mean, I could talk all night long about the things that I've done that old saying, they're rolling over in their grave when we did that. I hope my grandma ain't rolling over nowhere but in heaven. But I know she's in heaven. But you just never know what part of your story is going to be the one that changes somebody's life. When I met Jason, I was married. He is already out of recovery. I was married and an alcoholic, barely 21. And he kept talking about God, and condemning me because here I am flirting with him and I'm married. And I was like, it's okay. And eventually we ended up together and it ended up being an affair. And we can go back, and that's coming from somebody who's already in recovery, already out here in the world pulling fruit, and that doesn't make it okay, guys. Okay. But Romans 8:28 says that he works all things who love him, for all things of the people who love him together for the good. So he takes our messes and he makes them a message. So what I mean by that, even getting into that, was we have been in situations where we know people are having affairs and we can talk to them about it. And we say, we know, you've been there. We've done that. It's embarrassing. But guess what? You got to wear that crown just like you wear the crown of glory from God. So if you mess up, don't run. Don't run from here. If you trip, you stumble, you fall, guess what? Those doors are still open. Just the little bit of time I've got to speak with John, I know this is a safe place. And I think that's another thing is when you grow up in small towns like this, everybody at the church on Sunday knows your daddy bailed you out of jail last night. And I was just telling John that, and it sucks. And the judgment is so painful, but God is forgiving. And anytime somebody's got something judgmental to say to me, I'm like, well, go talk to Jesus about it, because we've already talked about it. We've moved on, and our pride gets in the way. Your pride. Nobody wants to own up to their mistakes, their trials, their trauma, or even what they've done to other people. Also, with my husband again, he got to he has a set of twins that are grown, and then we have a set of twins together that will be 5 on Christmas. So I tell people all the time that he has the true Job story, where he had the money and he had the house and he had the cars and he had the women and he had a set of twins, and he ruined all of that with drugs. How long did you manufacture? 3 years. He was manufacturing in Eads, Tennessee, in this nice, big, beautiful subdivision, $1 million houses on every corner, 10 acres of land. He had it all. But they took away the one thing he needed to keep manufacturing it. And I know that that's because the Lord knew what his plan was for him. And one day, you were cooking ramen on candles for your kids, right? No money, no nothing. But he was sitting there with a sack of dope. What do you say? A big fat sack of dope? Yep. And now, what was it, a month ago, he had the opportunity to take his daughter with him, his oldest daughter with him, to the recovery center, to the men, and got to have like this one-on-one conversation with her while he was supposed to be preaching, and recovering those relationships and getting the opportunity to say, I messed up big time with y'all, and I'm here to own up to it. And owning up to your own is freeing as well. When you start checking off those boxes of, yeah, that was my fault, yeah, and owning up to your mistakes and not blaming, well, mama and daddy should have done something about that when I was young, and, you know, it starts freeing the other things that keep you in addiction or keep you turning back to addiction. I remember our twins were fixing to be one. And all of my family was coming into town, and we're a rowdy bunch. But I mean, the whole family's a rowdy bunch. And I was getting anxious, but I was so like, oh, cousin Sam's going to be here. And then like things started clicking in my head. Oh, Sam smokes pot. Sam's going to bring that good stuff from Texas. Oh, I'm going to see my Aunt Vista in Greenville. They have the lake house, the Italian parlor, the sports parlor. Those are my stomping grounds. And I can't go back to those things. I love to go visit, but I can't hang out there. I can't let them hang out at my house. If my mom is at my house longer than an hour, we're in disarray. And that's my mama, and I love her. But the influence that even having those things around you, your old friends, I'm not saying don't love your family, because you can love them, but they can leave too. So it's really hard to keep yourself in check with that, especially like when you go to reminiscing on the good times. But I will say, sitting here listening to these guys play, I was sitting there back there, I was like, this feels like somebody's back porch out in the country. Like, I just reminiscing on a bonfire. So you learn to cope, you learn to move in a way that allows you to even minister to your family. Today, I had a Thanksgiving, and my uncle, he might as well be Willie Nelson. I mean, that's how much he smokes. He was sitting there going, I know, baby girl, I know I'm living wrong. And I sit there and I pray and I cry out to God all day. Help me, help myself. And sometimes we have to do that even now. Lord knows, when I first quit drinking, I said, how am I going to eat crawfish? I was like, I got to have a Michelob. How am I going to eat my crawfish? Any crawfish cooking y'all ever been to? What's there? It's beer and crawfish. That's the only reason people go. Guess what, guys? You can eat crawfish without a Michelob. Just saying. You can have Thanksgiving dinner without the Cousins Walk. Anybody know what the Cousins Walk is? All the cousins go on a walk with Mary Jo, Mary Jane. Oh, yep. So we had a Cousins Walk, but not this year. But I'm saying, like, that was our thing. Oh, today at our Thanksgiving, I ate and I was like, bye. Bye. And sure enough, I looked at my cousin. He was out on the back porch. He come around the corner. I said, bye. We're loading the kids in the car. But it's okay. It's okay to mess up a time or two. At the Women's Center down south, the lady who started that place, she's gone to be with the Lord now. But sometimes we had 2 or 3 come in 2 or 3 times, and she'd say, "That's okay, baby. Sometimes we got to put you back in the oven. Not all cakes get done in 30 minutes." So just keep toughing it out and know that your trauma, your mess is always going to be a message. And if you can bring somebody else in here and do it, whether they're in recovery or not, I sometimes don't say I'm in recovery, but I am in recovery. I was an alcoholic. I am an alcoholic, whatever you want to say. Bring them in, even if they don't have a reason to be here other than let's go hear some music and some funny stories. So I appreciate y'all letting me come. The Holy Spirit worked that completely different than I had planned, and I could have really gotten deep into stuff. And I hope that we get to come back because my husband's testimony of telling you is a true Job story where he had it all. He gave his life to God, and God gave it all back to him tenfold, because that's exactly what it is. And it's nobody else other than God. So I very much appreciate y'all.